call this meeting of the Sweetwater Commission to order. Ask Commissioner Lee to do the invocation this morning and ask Commissioner May to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father, we thank you for this very day, for your watch care over us, and for your deliberate and positive love. We thank you for your Son, Jesus, and the salvation he brings us. And we thank you that we can gather as a community, and as leaders of that community, deliberate positively and make decisions that would be pleasing to you. We pray that you could help us catch a vision of what you have in store for us, and that we could pursue that in your grace and in your peace. We pray for our community, that it would continue to prosper and to do the things that you have set up for it to do. Thank you for Jesus, and in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's do the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, I heard more noise from the audience than I thought we would.
All right, we'd like to welcome the Leadership Sweetwater class. Would each of you like to stand up and introduce yourselves and let us know who you're associated with?
I'm Sheila Crane. I work for Texas Metro Bank. I'm Melina Duran, and I'm the editor of the Sweetwater Reporter.
Jeremy Jennings. I'm a manufacturing engineer for Local Measurements. I'm Kyle Seaton. I work at Roscoe State.
Kelly Andrus, solid waste foreman, City of Sweetwater.
Dan Hoving, I'm the executive director at the National Lost Virology Museum.
Well, good morning, guys. I'm Dr. April Enard. I work here in town. And this is right here. I work in family medicine and obstetrics. I deliver babies and adults, all of the family.
I'm Joe Martinez. I work at First Financial Aid.
I'm Jessica Bond. I'm the director of marketing and relations at Apple.
Greg Cornett, Sweetwater Police Department.
Melinda Mercado Garces, Sweetwater.
Thank y'all for being here. And thank you for being involved. All right, we'll now move to item 5, which is discuss, consider, and act upon approval of minutes for the meeting held on October the 10th, 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll now move to item 6A, which is to approve the second and final reading of an ordinance to close the undeveloped alley in Block 3 of J.E. Stalling subdivision to the city of Sweetwater between Canfield Street and Park Avenue, undeveloped from Buff Street, undeveloped, west to dead end. Any questions?
Move
Go
ahead.
I'll move to approve it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll now read the ordinance into the record. The necessity of closing and abandoning an undeveloped alley in Block 3 of the J.E. Stalling subdivision to the city of Sweetwater between Canfield Street and Park Avenue from Buff Street to west to dead end. Okay, we'll now move to item 6B, which is a public hearing amending Chapter 19, Section 150, entitled Parking Prohibited Over Parts of Designated Streets by amending the Haley Street and Highway 20 Frontage Road, Northeast Georgia provisions.
Move we enter public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Has there been any consideration to, out on the interstate on Georgia, where these trucks are gonna park if they're prohibited from parking there? And I know it's an issue, but I had looked at that and I thought, well, where are they gonna go if we don't let them park here?
A lot of trucks will find their way into a Walmart or the old Kmart parking lot where there is a lot of space available. But the main thing is this was kind of initiated by TxDOT, especially the I-20 portion. And from a safety perspective, there's not a lot of visibility when you're trying to make a right or a left out onto the access road. You've got that ramp coming right at you, and those trucks are difficult to stop and all that. So it's a safety issue at this point. There hasn't been a lot of consideration as to where they would park. My feeling on that is they'll find a spot in a parking area. Is our hope. Our hope is that they don't move elsewhere and create a hazard where none exists currently. But we'll work with them on that. I know a lot of this is an enforcement issue, so we'll rely on Chief Frida and the Sweetwater Police Department to help out with that and try to do our best to redirect those trucks to other safer areas around town. I did speak to TxDOT about this and have been in discussions with them for months, but particularly last week with the new interim area engineer. And they're on board with putting up the signage should this ordinance pass today. And we'd work with them to find the spots that would make the most sense to put those signs up. And then, like I said, from an enforcement standpoint, work with Sweetwater PD to redirect those trucks to other safer areas.
Move adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Now read the ordinance into the record. Amending Chapter 19, Section 151, entitled Parking Prohibited Over Parts of Designated Streets by amending the Haley Street and Highway 70 provision. Okay, we'll now move to item 6C, which will begin by hearing a presentation by Police Chief Brian Frida on juvenile curfew ordinance.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
As dictated by legislature, we're required to revisit our juvenile curfew ordinance every 3 years, basically resetting the clock. Recently, in recent time, we added the daytime curfew for those students that are expelled from school. This keeps them from being able to just roam the streets and hang out at Allsups or the library or wherever, with exemptions or exceptions for those that are homeschooled. So basically what we're needing to do is revisit the ordinance to reset the clock for another 3 years and go ahead and include the visitation of not only the nighttime curfew, but the daytime curfew, and just put them on the same timeline. And so this is something that we're just required to do every 3 years.
Are there any other changes that you would like to see made to the ordinance?
No, sir, right now our ordinance is spot on with what is generally accepted by best practices across the state. As far as the hours and how they fluctuate between school year and during the summer months, as well as weekday versus weekend and holidays. And so we're pretty well comfortable with what we have, sir.
Are there any legality issues with regard to the wording expelled and not suspended? Because they are two different things.
They are two different things. However, I think if I'm not sure, how is it written in there, Pete, as far as the daytime portion of it? It's if they're not part of Wallace or at the DAP or something like that and just out running around, then we can verify with the school whether they're supposed to be on a particular campus of some sort, or if they've been removed from the district temporarily or for the year or whatever the case may be, and then they would fall under the curfew of the ordinance. And furthermore, the daytime portion of this was mirrored or taken from several different agencies across the state, and it's been pretty well vetted.
Yes, my concern was if there becomes a legal issue between the individuals and the enforcement agency because of the wording. And a lawyer gets a hold of the idea that you didn't say suspended, so you can't prosecute this, or whatever is done.
Yes, sir. I would refer that to our city attorney as far as the language issue, because I think that that'll be something that'll be argued in the municipal court with Judge Maxwell. And so if that becomes a point of law as far as the verbiage that is used, then of course we would have to go back and to amend the ordinance if it becomes a point.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
I move we approve it.
Second,
We gotta have a motion for a public hearing first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I move we have a public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against it or for it? Okay, motion to close public
I
hearing.
move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we approve the ordinance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move to item 6D, which is discuss, consider, and act upon approval of an ambulance purchase. Do you have any questions for Russell Jones or Grant? I know it's overdue.
What happens to the old one? Is it,
It'll go to the city auction.
Grant. Sorry.
It'll go to the city auction. We've already got one down there waiting for the next city auction, whenever they have an auction. It just has to be stripped of its stuff that says Sweetwater and ambulance and stuff.
Right, in the past, we've donated these to places like Blackwell Volunteer Fire Department. Is there?
I doubt they want this one back.
Any
We bought it.
volunteer fire department that could use it?
Not that I'm aware of. We're certainly happy to do that. I think we get better mileage out of it. It brings very little at the auction, usually. If there are departments around, volunteer EMS agencies, we are still allowed to do that, is my understanding. And if there are any that need it, we'll be more than happy to make those arrangements. The one that this will be replacing, the box is from 1984. The truck is from 1999. So if they want it, we're more than happy to get it to them.
There's not much left, I don't think. Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a motion?
so moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will now move to item 6E, which is discuss, consider, and act upon acknowledging of the November 7th, 2017 special election judges, their alternates and workers, and the early voting ballot board. Does the commission have any questions of Patty Torres?
So essentially, we're just ratifying what's already taken place.
Well, this, I think that's our next agenda item. This is just the recognition of
Okay.
the judges. And I would commend Patty. I'll make sure she's included in here because this, she was herding cats, I think, on this for a while, weren't you?
She herded him. That's the thing.
Need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, now we'll move to item 6F, which is discuss, consider, and act upon a resolution in ordering canvassing the returns of and declaring the results of the November 7th, 2017 special election. Does anybody have any questions of Patty on this?
Mayor, if you'll allow us, I did want to kind of go over and remind the community of what the ballot language was for the election of November 7th. And then what they voted on and what was approved, the ballot language was authorizing the creation of the Sweetwater Municipal Development District and the imposition of a sales and use tax at the rate of 0.5% for the purpose of financing development projects beneficial to the district. And that's the standard language that was on the ballot, and that was the question that was answered by those who voted in the election on the 7th and before during early voting. What that means is the Sweetwater Municipal Development District itself is created and can impose a sales and use tax at the rate of 0.5%. And y'all know that the current seed structure, the 4A structure, imposes a sales and use tax at that same 0.5%. So what that means here is that this is the MDD district. Everything inside of the yellow line that includes the municipal limits of the city of Sweetwater and the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Sweetwater. And what the ETJ is, for those that aren't aware, is that is the area 1 mile out in all directions from the corporate limits of the city. So that will include all the areas in that yellow line is the new municipal development district that was created by the affirmative vote of the voters on the 7th. And we are here today to affirm that vote and review that vote. And the results are here. They're broken down by precinct. And then you see the totals at the far right column. 575 eligible voters cast a ballot in the election, including early vote. And like I said, here are the results by precinct. The totals are 424. The question, 155 against the question. That breaks down to 73% for, 27% against, for a total again of 575 eligible voters that voted to create the MDD district and to impose that 0.5 cent sales and use tax on businesses in the district. And that's where we are now.
Move adoption of the resolution. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll now read the resolution into the record. A resolution in ordering canvassing the returns and declaring the results of a special election. Okay, now move to item 6G, which is discuss, consider, and act upon allocating votes for second stage in the Nolan County Central Appraisal District Board of Directors election.
Mr. Mayor, in the past, because the city by itself does not have enough to elect any one person, we historically have cast our ballots with whomever the Sweetwater Independent School District is voting for.
Do we know who that is?
I do not
I
know.
would assume it's Domingo since he's on the school board, but I don't know.
Well, Jeff Allen is too.
Oh, okay. Jeff Allen is who okay. There you go.
It's
That's who the board is voting.
That I would move we cast our ballots for Jeff Allen.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jeff Allen it is. Okay, we'll now move to item 6H, which is discuss, consider, and act upon approval of Schneider Electric Energy Service Professional Service Investment Grade Audit for the Interlocal Purchasing System TIPS contract numbers 170103. Mr. Davis.
Hey, thank you all for having us out this morning. My name is Charlie Davis with Schneider Electric. I have with me Ryan Wonder, who is our project engineer. And we've been working with Mr. Vela and his team for about the last year or so, kind of talking about different opportunities of savings here in the city. So today I'm going to kind of go through what the next steps are and what we've actually identified and how to get to the next steps. So the next slide, I'm first just going to briefly kind of go over how the energy funding model works. Then I'm going to talk about the savings opportunities we have found, followed by a case study at the city of Abilene, and then kind of talk a little bit about some community involvement we've done with other cities throughout West Texas, and then the next steps. So kind of how this solution works, as you can see on the top part, creating a revenue stream. Right now, we think there's around 10 to 30% of actual savings that we can reinvest back into the city. And on that bottom chart, you can see kind of before how your energy bill looks compared to after, where, as I mentioned earlier, we're actually just redirecting costs that you're currently spending the utility companies and putting them right back into the city to pay for themselves and to be budget neutral. And it's one partner designed around specific business goals of what makes sense for the city and what we can find to find the energy savings to make this project work. On the next slide, I'm going to have Ryan talk about kind of in this phase as the first one, just starting out with just LED lighting. That's something that the cost has come down significantly over the years. So I'm going to have Ryan come up and just kind of discuss some of the lighting we'll be looking at throughout the city.
All right, thank you, Charlie. We've got a slide here that lists some of the key benefits associated with LED lighting, both interior and exterior. The benefits are similar, but obviously we're talking about a significantly reduced utility spend. So LED lighting compared to fluorescent or other HID type lighting, exterior lighting is typically going to be 50% reduction. And it could be more like 75% for exterior lighting. So significant reduction in actual energy use that translates into energy spend reduction. The second bullet item, maintenance, is a really key item when it comes to LEDs, because I think everybody's familiar with LED lighting and solid state lighting and that extremely long lifespan. So we might be talking about 20,000 hours for fluorescent bulbs. Most of the LED products we're talking about now are 50,000 hours or as much as 100,000 hours. So significantly longer life that translates to material savings over the years. We're not changing out lamps, we're eliminating ballasts, just getting rid of them outright. And then also there's a significant reduction in labor associated with maintaining those light systems over the years. So huge benefit associated with reduction of maintenance. The third bullet associated with lighting quality. So fluorescent lighting, interior lighting is of good quality. It produces a very high quality light. LED produces a better quality of light. So we have that added benefit on top of the energy savings and the reduction of maintenance. There's an improved quality of light. And when we talk about exterior lighting, the quality difference is very significant. So exterior lighting, current technologies, high intensity discharge lighting like metal halide and high pressure sodium, these light sources are typically poor quality. You may have seen that with some of the yellowish outside lighting where it's difficult to tell what color a parked vehicle might be. This LED lighting is going to take that lighting exterior and make it very high quality, just like the lighting inside the building. So big difference in quality outside. It definitely enhances security. So big differences both inside and outside the buildings.
Thank you, Ryan. And just quickly, here is a case study of what we've done at the city of Abilene. It's always great to be back here in this part of West Texas. I'm an HCU grad in 2006, so it's nice to be back. But right now, we're looking at a fourth phase for the city of Abilene, looking at doing the same thing as LED lighting retrofits. But since 2008, we've been able to upgrade a lot of their mechanical infrastructure that they didn't currently have funds to take care of, as well as other types of savings to implement that type of project. But like I said here, today we're just looking to move forward to design and develop just an LED lighting project. That seems to be the most savings right now to take care of a lot of needs that's completely paid for, that's self-funded. So with that, the last part I was going to talk about was just community involvement. One thing we really have started to do recently in the past is get the community involved, kind of show them, hey, we were able to find dollars and other financing vehicles to take care of projects without affecting the budget, without having to go out for a bond. So we kind of like to showcase that to the community. So that's something we can work with Mr. Vela and the community to see how you'd like this shown. And one of the things was the museum. We talked about doing retrofits for LEDs at the museum as well here. So with that, the next step's the investment grade audit to actually work with Mr. Vela and his team, design and develop a lighting scope to then come back with you at that point to see if you'd like to move forward with that. So thank you for letting us be here today, and any questions y'all have, we're happy to answer.
I guess I have one question. You guarantee savings, but I guess I'm having a difficult time wrapping my mind out. How do you quantify that to show it? Other than just assumptions that this burns that much electricity, the others burn this much. I mean, how do you actually do an actual audit on the actual savings?
That's a great question. I'll let the smart engineer.
That's a really good question, because especially with lighting, it's very easy to manipulate savings and to exaggerate savings, because the savings come from, just like you mentioned, the light fixtures before and then the light fixtures after. But then there's also this component of the run times. That's key to the savings. Light fixtures that are on for short periods of time, they don't yield much savings, even if there's a large reduction in wattage. And then lights that run all the time, the lights we really want to target, that's where a lot of savings come from. So we can see wild assumptions made associated with utility rates, where people can say, well, you probably pay about 15 cents a kilowatt hour. We see assumptions made with lighting run hours and say, well, these lights run for 5,000 hours a year. And then the third component that can skew savings is burnouts. So we want to make sure that we take into consideration lights that are not working now, because after a retrofit project, they're going to all be working. And so burnouts affect savings. So those three things are where we focus. And so we're using the actual utility rates that the city pays. We're not assuming rates. We know it's a lot less than 15 cents a kilowatt hour. We're using the run hours for the building. So we know that lights in this room, for instance, they're not on 8 to 12 or 8 to 5 o'clock, every day of the week. It's a reduced schedule. And so we want to use the actual hours, because that's going to yield the actual savings. And then, like I mentioned, the burnouts, those are key. We see inside the buildings, there's a certain number of burned out lamps. It's typically a small percentage, 5 or 10%. Outside the buildings, there's a much higher number of burned out light fixtures. And it effectively works out so that a 10% burnout rate will reduce your savings by 20%. So it's very significant to take those things into consideration. We want to show you a very accurate, true depiction of the savings. The way that it's actually verified is through measurement. So we actually measure the wattage in the fixtures before they're retrofit, and then we measure them after they're retrofit. So we can say with certainty what the savings actually are.
Each individual fixture?
No, it's a representative sample. So these light fixtures in this room, we might take a look and amp out one fixture, and it's going to be representative of the others because they're exactly the same. So we wouldn't go through and put a meter on every single light fixture, but we do want to go through and get a representative sample of each type of fixture.
How long does that take? Or how long do you run each light?
It's
to
an instantaneous
electric use?
measurement. We're measuring the actual power usage, the kW usage. So we put a meter on the light fixture and get a reading. And then once that fixture is retrofit, we're going to come back to it a second time and take that same measurement.
Okay. You're not doing it just for 30 minutes or so. You're going to leave it on there for some time?
No, it's done, and it's just done instantaneous. All we are interested in, we're not interested in a power usage over time. We're interested in that one-time measurement. And we're going to use the run hours that we know the building operates to give us the kWh number. So there's two components to the electricity usage. It's the kW, the demand, and the kWh is the consumption. So the measurements are all going to be done on the power side, the kW side. Those are great questions, though. Any other questions?
How long will the audit take?
I think we can survey the city facilities probably in 2 days.
We'll be able to definitely come back, work on Mr. Vela to see if December, January, whenever we come back to actual, to bring you a project with the total cost, the savings amount. And the great thing about it is that if we can't find a project that's self-funded, if the lighting project just say doesn't make sense, then y'all don't owe us anything.
Okay, so there's no charge for the audit itself.
But if we do find a self-funding project and you decide just for some reason not to move forward, there's a $15,000 exit fee just to protect us for recouping our costs for working through developing this lighting project.
On the outside lighting, y'all do street lights, and do you do a random sample, or you just do one?
The street
Or you
lighting.
do street light?
The street lighting typically is going to be owned by the utility, so we're limited as far as what we can do there. But there are some lights in the city that may be parking lot lights that are similar to street lighting that the city does own. Those are powered off the building, so we would certainly focus on
You
those.
do that.
Yes, sir.
Other than lighting, what things are you looking at?
Well, for this initial phase, we're targeting lighting exclusively. Lighting is gonna represent probably the shortest payback. It's probably gonna be the most visible thing that can be done right now.
But
As far
y'all
as
also do heating and cooling and
Yes, sir.
things of that nature.
Absolutely.
At City of Appleton, we've done multiple phases as well. Mr. Vela was there as well, and it was, you know, redoing heating and cooling and the chillers and boilers at Civic Center, at City Hall, windows, roofs. So we just all types of things that make sense if it can have savings to pay for itself.
And that would be at an additional cost down the road if we chose to do something like that.
Correct. Right now, we're just looking at this first phase, and if that's successful and y'all are happy with us, and we'd be more than happy to come back and look at other opportunities to see what savings we can find to take care of mechanical units, any other type of thing in the city that we could find that could use this type of financing vehicle.
How can y'all fund a project that's not self-funding?
It's very rare. I mean, it depends. I mean, there has been times though that we've gone back to the city or the school district and have said, you know, there's really not a savings opportunity. Y'all are doing a great job. But that's very rare, especially with lighting, with the LEDs coming down so quickly recently with the technology and the savings that it has associated with it. But we've worked with over 200 clients here in Texas alone.
Now, with the retrofitting of the lighting, is that something that goes out to bid, or is that something your company does?
That's something.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that we do, and so that's a component. It's basically a material and an installation labor component.
Okay. Well, Mr. Vale, I have a question. What is the advantage of letting these guys oversee retrofitting of the lighting versus us doing it ourselves?
I think Snyder is a renowned company. They've done this in multiple jurisdictions all over the country and beyond. I would say that we just don't have the expertise here at the city that Snyder does have. And like Mr. Davis said, I've worked with them in my former city, and they did a fantastic job with coming in and not only evaluating the savings and putting down projects that the council could approve, and they've been good to work with. I've worked with them, like I said, in my former city, and I always found them to be, responsive and customer service oriented, and really just the expertise that they bring, and the experience that they bring to a project like this. We need a company like Snyder to go ahead and get this done for us.
Well, I guess my question is I guess I don't know if what they charge for the lighting is going to be more or less than what we could do if we were to bid it out.
Yeah, I'm confident. I mean, there's no doubt that what we're doing is very competitive price-wise. I think the real value, though, is beyond that. Where we have low bid type of construction practice habits, you end up with a low bid result.
Well, you could specify specs.
Right. It even comes down to like a room like this.
A low bid, or low quality like that.
Even with a room like this where we have 4 lamp fixtures, the natural tendency is to go back and repeat with 4 lamp LED fixtures, which would be a real waste. But without the expertise to come in and drive the foot levels, the foot candle, the lighting levels that we want, then that's typically what happens. The lights get replaced one for one. And even though it's more efficient, it's not as efficient as it could be, and it should be. This room is a good example because we wouldn't want to come back in here with a 4 lamp solution because it would be a waste, even if it were LED. So there's a host of issues and examples like that. I think the value there is showing the true energy savings, like I talked about. And then, go ahead.
That one of the big things too is the guarantee part. That's being an energy services company. We're on the line for those retrofits. So if we come back to you in December and say you're going to save $20,000 a year for the next 10 years doing this lighting project, and the first year you see a $7,000 savings, we are responsible for writing a check for $3,000 to you to make up that difference. So it's a guaranteed savings source on our side that we're promising these savings are going to be achieved. If they're not, there's a shortfall, we're writing the check to make up for that shortfall.
I think from my perspective, it comes down to this. I mean, on the purchase of an ambulance, we're more than capable of writing specifications to purchase an ambulance or police vehicles. We know what we want in police vehicles, but at the staff level, I'm sorry to say, we don't have the expertise to sit down and write a proper, intelligent RFQ and put that out on the street and bid this type of a project. Few cities do. We're just not in that business versus purchasing ambulances and operating those, or purchasing police vehicles. And we know what we want in those things. We wouldn't really know where to begin, honestly, in dealing with these kinds of things and putting lighting retrofits out for bid. It's just not something that we do as a primary function as a municipal corporation. And that's why we rely on folks like Snyder to come in who do have that expertise, and engineers on staff, and folks like Charlie that can explain and sell the product. And you have the resources of a company like Snyder come in and guide us on that. And for that, they've done very well over the years with other cities, in my experience. And here we are with Snyder, and I would suggest that moving forward, we're going to do anything that we work with Snyder. And Charlie, if you can, the interlocal purchasing system, can you explain kind of how that works under the contract?
So the Texas Interlocal Purchasing System is what allows us, as being part of that, and y'all being a part of that as well, to be able to choose us, to select us, to move forward with the development and design of the lighting project, and then negotiate a final price with Mr. Vela and his staff to make sure y'all are getting fair pricing. So all of that will be discussed with Mr. Vela throughout the development of this, to make sure, hey, here's the list of, here's the contractors that we've used, here's our engineers, here's the cost of the whole program, so that y'all understand where it's coming from. So that's what the statute allows for cities to do, that type of thing, instead of having to spend a lot of resources internally to have to do the homework of the RFQ, and just, as he mentioned earlier, get a lot of the low bid come in and give pricing. So this is where we can negotiate and work with Mr. Vela for a fair price for the lighting.
And you said it would take 2 days to survey. So
On
that would
site.
mean you would come back in December and give us the results of that survey?
Yes, sir. I think we could have, depending on when he can get out here with our other engineers and do the 2 days on-site evaluation, go back to the office, crunch the numbers, get everything together. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but could we get that back by December's board meeting?
I believe so. It'd be a quick turnaround. What's the date of that meeting?
Second Tuesday of December.
A challenge for sure, but it'd be
January at the latest, probably.
yeah, I think January at the very latest.
Be December 12th.
I think our goal would be to be back here surveying the week after Thanksgiving.
Well, you could come on Thanksgiving Day.
I move we proceed with this agreement with these guys.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Thank y'all so much.
Mhm.
Look forward to coming back.
City managers report.
Charlie, do you have the remote? I'll charge you for it. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Item 7 is the city manager's report. I'll be talking about 3 things during my report: the elevated storage tank update, a water availability update, and an update on the police vehicles that were recently delivered. On the EST, the electricians will be on site this week. The new tank will be filled up next week. The tank's going to be filled up in phases, and overall will take 4 days to fill, and the demolition of the old tank will take place by the end of this calendar year, December 31st. So we're looking forward to that and getting that new tank online. And Mr. Campbell, if I left anything out, feel free to interject. Okay, thank you. On the water availability update, we get these quarterly updates from our consulting engineers, EHT, over in Abilene. And just kind of to summarize, for the upcoming quarter, water demand should continue to be met with a balance of water from the groundwater and surface water supplies, so a mix from those 2 supplies. And no changes recommended for the upcoming quarter to the normal operating condition due to recent rains. and to anticipate a decrease in potable water demand as it transition into winter and spring continues. So this is the time of the year when the people, residences and businesses tone down the irrigating of their lawns. We see a decrease overall in consumption at the residential and commercial industrial levels as the weather cools down and stays cool for the next several months. As the spring comes back into play in early 18, we'll see those consumption levels increase, and it's just a cycle. They kind of peak in the middle of the summer when it's 105 degrees outside, and then decline as we head towards Christmas in the winter months. So this is the kind of synopsis of the water availability update. If I've left anything out, again, Mr. Campbell, let me know, but we're free to answer any questions on that as they come up. And an update on the police vehicles. Chief Madden took this picture. You'll see the 6 vehicles that were picked up from Silsbee last week and drove back to Sweetwater in a caravan of sorts. And so we're proud to say that as of now, the 6 vehicles, like I said, were delivered last week. We now have a total of 8 vehicles that are in service. 7 of those vehicles are patrol vehicles, and we have 1 vehicle signed to CID. And Chief Rita, if I left anything out. They've all been signed and good. In fact, as soon as Zach was able to get the computers with all of our needs on it, they were on much faster than we have. So we've got the 7 on patrol, and likely the folks out in the audience and up here on the dais have seen the vehicles out in the community. And again, we do want to thank the community and the City Commission for their support of purchasing those 8 vehicles. They were sorely needed. And while we're at it, I'd like to thank you all for the support in purchasing the ambulance, which again was sorely needed as well, as the mayor mentioned. And then I just kind of wanted to throw this up there. I know it's not on the agenda, but we'll have a demonstration of the PowerPro XT cot outside of these double doors immediately following this meeting. Going this route as far as putting our patients on the cot and loading them into the ambulance, which is a process that we do manually right now, has led to some injuries of the back and all that. We want to cut through that and keep the patients and our fire EMS personnel as safe as we can. This is one way to go ahead and do that. So we'll have the demonstration here. We have a representative from Stryker here this morning. Thank you for being here. That will, like I said, demonstrate the capabilities of the machine just outside these double doors immediately following this meeting. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I had.
Thanks, sir. Public input. Adjournment?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Uh-huh.
Aye.